hear. What are you working on?
Trying to make the legislation easier to understand. Did you see my brief summary messages from last night?
I didn't. I know it came through, but I was pretty sick yesterday, so.
Gotcha. TLDR, it looks like it. Now, of course, this is just a layman's understanding of it, but
Yeah.
I've been trying to dissect the entire legislation last night.
Mm-hmm.
We have 70 pieces of legislation. So it's a nightmare to try and dig through this thing. But look at the
We have
Constitution.
70?
Yeah, 36 of them are state, 34 are state, 24 are Los Santos, 10 are Blaine County.
Jesus.
But yeah, I was trying to dissect it all to make everything easier to reference and understand and categorize everything. I mean, this is just me. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a cop who's been here a long time, but it kind of makes it seem like it's unconstitutional for Pred to have been removed.
Oh, we know. That's the problem, but these fucking dumb fucks don't understand the English language. That's the problem, and it's so annoying because if you read the legislation, it's in plain English, and the only way to interpret it otherwise is like if you're reading it like a fucking ESL student, which nothing against ESL, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm ESL, but like, I have enough to understand what the fuck how English works.
It doesn't even have to go to legislation. You don't have to look further than the Constitution itself. It literally says in plain words on the Constitution, the mayor shall serve 3 months, period. That's it. Shall is a compulsory term in law. And that's quite literally all it says about the mayor.
Oh my God. Where does it say that?
It's in, that's why I have the reference version of it. I call it Article 2, Chapter 8. But here, this might make things a little bit easier. What's your state ID number?
It is 1166. Wait, what the fuck?
1166?
Yeah.
Did you get that document? It's a link. It's safe for eyes. So I spent all night dissecting the vast majority of legislation, categorizing all the legislation, and creating reference points for it all. 99% of it is all word for word directly from the legislation. It just has reference points. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's Article 2, Chapter 8 in the Constitution. Literally is a direct reference. It just says the mayor shall. The elected mayor shall serve 3 months, period. End of. There is no...
Give it to me one more time.
Article 2, the document or the verbiage?
Yeah, the Article 2,
Chapter 8. Article 2, Chapter 8 of the in my thing. I don't know if you know how to follow like these like layouts, but it's Article 2, Chapter 8.
Oh my God.
Directly says the elected positions shall serve.
Holy
the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You cannot override the constitutional legislation, period.
Barrett, we're going to talk soon.
So if that's the case, if that's literally it, there is no mechanism for removal. The mayor shall serve those 3 months.
And anything that is anything that is derived outside of this would not be applicable.
Unconstitutional. Right.
Holy fuck.
Therefore, it should be implied, if that is the understanding of the Constitution, then that Blaine County legislation, if it was deemed constitutional, then it should inherently be implied that it does not include the mayor in that legislation, because it can't include the mayor. But now feel free to dig that. That project is a project. I literally took the 36 legislations from the state legislations and categorized them into different categories, and I organized them. I removed all the fluff. I put in just the meat and potatoes of everything, and gave it all reference points, because trying to explain to somebody hey, look at the search and seizure legislation and go to like the 5th paragraph, the 3rd line, and that's where it says this. But then if you look at the 2nd paragraph, it says this, because I don't know if you've looked through the search and seizure legislation.
Yeah.
Or the search warrant legislation. It's a nightmare. It just constantly bounces back and forth. There's no reference points. It's just big blocky paragraphs. So I dissected it, rearranged it, didn't change any of the wording at all, but just made it referenceable. And I did that for everything.
So I'm going to be transparent with you. We have about 15 documents that are going to be posted to the DOJ, pretty much impeaching a lot of them and some law enforcement over some of these things. Not for any other reason other than to cast light on it. Because the mayor thing is just one of many holes. And if you are interested in looking at those documents and expanding on it, you are more than welcome. At the end of the day, I think many of us just want a system that makes sense.
Yes.
And is consistent so that there is no debate brewing over dumb shit, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is what it meant, but no, I'm going to interpret it my own way. And I know we wanted to make things like, I know the idea was to make things very vague because we want to be able to interpret law, but there's a point where you get to, you're just throwing alphabet soup on the ground and trying to make sense of it.
Yes.
And it's got to have some form of unity in the system so that we can argue it.
The core issue, in my opinion, is a lot of the justices have been derelicting their duties, because I think any sensible justice, the moment the Constitution was written, would have looked at the Constitution and then developed branches of legislation outward. So that when you looked at the the constitutional justification, where you have to actually cite the Constitution lines, those would act as like the joining point, right? And you would then derive out more meaning from it, right? So, for example, how do you get rid of a mayor? How do you add one? All those kind of things. But because those steps were ignored, even though they're logical first steps, we are now, and it's not just with the mayorship, it's across many other things. There's a lot of confusion, not just for law enforcement, but for legislators, as well as those that need to interpret it, like judges.
Yes.
So,
and that's part of why I made this document, this project, is for referencing. It's almost impossible to reference anything in law right now. And I've given literally everything a reference point so that you can make these citations and notations and references and things like that. That's the goal. And even when we get into future legislation, I don't know if you've dealt with any kind of legislative matters in the Western world or anything like that, but it's pretty typical for you to go in Article 2, Chapter 3, Section 8. It currently says this. I want to amend subsection A to now now read this. And honestly, that's the path I kind of want to get to, because man, it makes things a lot easier.
That's
it creates a paper trail.
it. Yep. Now, keep in mind, there's an open question of whether or not Pred even is or is not the mayor, because there is no document saying one thing or the other, right? And there is no name associated with who is making the claim. And I'm being very specific with this because for the removal of somebody, there needs to be a paper trail.
A claimant. Yeah, there has to be a claimant.
Yes. But this is great. I appreciate it, Barrett. And I'm going to chat with you more probably this evening after we chat with the governor and whatnot, see how to move things forward.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, have fun. Like I said, dig through that document and see if it makes it anything. I've already shown it to a couple of like older lawyers and newer lawyers at the same time. The older lawyers are like, "Oh man, this makes things easier to find things," and the newer lawyers are telling me that it makes them easier to read and understand. They don't have to dig through so much fluff. So I'm kind of hopeful that this is going to help a lot.
Absolutely. I will bring up the public MDT to the governor tonight.
That'd be awesome.
Yep. All right.
All right. I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate you. You take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Holy fuck.